Hi, shalom everyone. Here we have been in Yud Gimel Elul, the 13th of Elul, which very much symbolizes the Yartzeit of one of the great Iraqi rabbis of yesteryear, Hacham Yosef Haim מבגדאד, also popularly known, especially under the name of his book, the Ben Ish Chai. He passed away in the English year 1909. So friends, we're talking about 125 years ago from the time of recording now. Here we are in 2024 naturally. To be precise, it was on the 30th of August over there. He became a great rabbi, a various writer of various different works. He'd become a great Kabbalist also, a darshan, a rabbi that gives the most powerful sermons away, and the author of many different great books, and possibly one of the leading rabbis at his time of especially the Eidut Mizrach countries, and especially in Iraq in itself, which had a galaxy of great Torah personalities at that stage in time. So let's just explore a bit of the life within regards to Hacham Yosef Haim, the Ben Ish Chai. So it's actually interesting. He was, as we stated before, he was born, there's differing opinions. Some people say he was born in the year 1832, according to one opinion, 1834, 1835. But be it as it may, he came from very, very great rabbinic heritage. His father's name was Hacham Eliyahu Chaim, and his grandfather's name was Hacham Moshe Haim. These are great rabbis I've related videos of before in previous times of the Hilulot of them respectively. They were great rabbis and leaders of the Baghdad community. And remember, Baghdad at the time had great rich yeshivot, including the Midrash Bet Zilka, which was actually headed by the famous Hacham Abdallah Somech, Rabbi Abdallah Somech, who we've mentioned about many times. Let's explore a few of the great highlights of Hacham Yosef Haim's career. It was reported over when he was only 7 years of age. At the time he was Yosef Haim, he fell into a deep pit in a chatzeh, in a courtyard of his home. While I believe it was reported over, he was playing with his sister. He was eventually saved by a miracle, and in thanks to Hashem, in Hakara to talk to Hashem, he decided to devote his life to studying Torah. And while he was a young boy, he spent many, many hours learning, delving into the greatest myths of Torah in of itself, especially from his father's extensive library. We said that his father was a great leading rabbi in Baghdad. He himself also attended the famous yeshiva, Bet Zilka, also which we've spoken about before, which is the main yeshiva, the galaxy, the bastion of yeshivot in Baghdad, obviously headed by Chacham Abdallah Somech. Interesting story, which is very, very well documented, is that when he was only 14 years of age, there was a question for his father arrived. Many people responded and sent questions from various different countries. And at that stage in time, one of the greatest Torah centers across the world was in Turkey. And it was actually interesting. Rabbi Chaim Pelagi, who we've also spoken about before, I believe at the time he was a chief rabbi of Turkey, sent a question to his father. However, at this point in time, his father was very, very busy and wasn't able to answer the question for several days. So what happened was that Rabbi Yosef Haim actually answered the question instead of his father. So Rabbi Chaim Pelagi would receive the answer, the responser from him thinking that it was a father of the Ben Ish Chai. He was so impressed with the response that he predicted, eventually it came out, that this great, let's say this mastermind child, teenager, will become a great sage. And it's actually interesting, in a letter to Hacham Yosef Haim's father, he basically express himself. Your son, dear to your soul, has already preceded you and decided this case. May his father rejoice in him. So he had the most lavish praise from Rabbi Chaim Pelagi, who was obviously the chief rabbi at the time of Turkey and became arguably one of the great Turkish rabbis. He himself was during the 1800s. There was actually a special room secluded where he would actually learn, and he garnered the greatest depths of spiritualness. He studied Torah by day and night throughout. At midnight, he would actually rise, reported over, to recite the Tikkun Chatzot. Obviously, what is Tikkun Chatzot? It laments the destruction, the Churban Bet HaMikdash, the destruction of the temple. And at sunrise also, Netzach Hama, he would recite the morning tefillot, the prayers in of itself. It's reported over that for 6 consecutive years, he fasted by day and ate only at night. Obviously, to weaken the Yetzer Hara, let's say, the physical drives in of itself, because he was worried that would interfere with his divine service, his kavanot for Hashem, all the tefillot he's doing, for all the avodat Hashem he's doing, and to garner a greater spiritual bank. Reports over, he built a mikveh, a spiritual bath, in his home, so he could could dip into the mikveh any time because it obviously is a well of purification. At the age of 18 years old, he got married to Rabbanit Rachel, happened to be the daughter of a Rabbi Yehuda Somech, who was, I believe, a relative of Chacham Abdallah Somech, Rabbi Abdallah Somech, who was a Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivat Bet Zelka. It's reported that they had one daughter and a son. It's actually interesting. Rabbi Yosef Haim was known for the attention he showered upon his children. He taught them Torah and conversed with them. He composed a lot of different riddles and puzzles to entertain them. Many of these riddles and puzzles and various different teachings he actually taught them is actually recorded in the famous Torah colossal work of his, the Imre Bina. He became the leader of the Baghdad community. Baghdad, as we said, was a bastion of galaxy of Jewish life over there. This was at the age of 25 years old when his father passed away, and he became, let's just say, an unofficial leader in the Baghdad community. He had obviously the title Chacham, which, what does Chacham mean? We all know from the Leil HaSeder. It means the wise one. It was also the traditional Sephardic title bestowed upon many different great rabbis, and it appeared on his name. Despite at that stage in time, he was only 25 years of age, he was very, very highly respected. And it's actually interesting, one of his great disciples was Rabbi David Chai HaKohen, who he himself testified that if Rabbi Yosef Haim had lived during the time of the Bet HaMikdash, it would never have been destroyed. There wouldn't have been a Chorban Bet HaMikdash, he testified. For unlike then, when the Jews, let's say at that time, there was they disregarded the admonitions of the, let's say, the Nevi'im at that stage in time, the entire Baghdad community obeyed, loved every word that was uttered by Hacham Yosef Haim's mouth. And it's actually interesting, he had huge influence all throughout his life. Many of the Jews of Baghdad, they observed Shabbat, there was kashrut, there was great Torah law at that stage in time. It's reported over that Hacham Yosef Haim even refused a salary for his public service. He supported his family, reported over, by partnering in his brother's business. He was partner inside the father's business, and he personally funded for the publishing of various different books that he actually wrote. He reported over, he refused charity within regards to these books in of itself. He was also known to donate his books to various different Torah scholars so that they will strengthen themselves also within regards to the Torah community. It's actually interesting, he actually also built bridges, especially within regards to Sephardic communities and Ashkenazic communities. Hence nowadays also we see that in many of the various different Beit Midrashot, study halls, you go to all across the world, you'll see a book of Ben Ish Chai in all over the world, all different places in of itself. He followed widely different sync of practices also. He references the great rabbis of his generation in many of his books, and also talks about their approaches, let's just say. He felt strongly that Torah scholars needed to show, let's say, some sort of a mutual recognition for one another. Even say there was disagreements, and we all know that all throughout the thousands of years since we've got the Torah, there's always been robust disagreements. Still, there should be, let's say, a mutual respect for each other at the same time, not let it go out of hand and go out of the Avodat Hashem sphere also. It's actually, many of his legal decisions carry weight, obviously mostly among the Sephardic Jewry in of itself. Many of the great students, the great people out there, the communities, will follow the Ben Ish Chai. And also many of the Ashkenazic counterparts saw the beauty and the genius within regards to the Ben Ish Chai in of himself and hold him at the highest esteem. It's said over that for 50 years, from his appointment until he passed away in the year 1909, he lectured for 1 hour daily on the Torah, also within regards to Agadah also, which was based obviously on historical material, especially on the Talmud itself. I think it's also related many of his teachings in the famous book of the Tzalat Leziri, also the small synagogue, which is interesting. 4 times a year, he lectured at the famous great synagogue of Baghdad, I think, which was actually in of itself built with material from the land of Israel. He understood that Torah law, the way how it's applied within regards to everything. He coupled Kabbalah and Agadah also within regards to his teachings, and he would also bring about biblical pasukim, so and all different sources, so that it will the wisdom, the chachma of the Torah will pierce through all the people's bodies and really be like an incredible indulgence and incredible joy for everybody. Many of his works, especially the Ben Ish Chai, which is the most famous work of Hacham Yosef Haim, is based on the 3-hour classes he presented each Shabbat. It was each Sabbath. He'd begin each lecture with, let's say, Kabbalistic interpretation. He'll bring out his Kabbalistic insights, and he'd actually display it over with a simple language, which was another genius of him to do. And he'd relate over within regards to the Torah portion, the Parshat Shvuah also, and present various different practical laws also. So it was like a fantastic blend of teaching. 2 important figures guided his work. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the famous author of the Zohar, and also Rabbi Isaac Luria, the famous Arizal, Ha'ari HaKadosh, as we say. Also, it was his Hilula only last month, I believe, on the 5th of Av, and we related a video with him in past times also. He had local traditions he actually imbued with regards to his halachic rulings also, because obviously being from Baghdad, he would not recommend a change in local tradition unless, let's say, there was a compelling reason to do so. And it's actually interesting, his rulings testified to his approach. He had a genius approach, which gave credence to local tradition, and let's say to various different Sephardic and also Ashkenazic rulings throughout. Actually, he became the standard reference book of Torah law amongst Sephardim, the Ben Ish Chai did, and appealed to a huge, diverse audience with regards to the whole sphere of the Sephardic community specifically. And because of the widespread popularity within regards to the book, he became the name of the book itself. That's why many people will call him the Ben Ish Chai. There's various different great stories and tales within regards to his greatness. One story that does stick out over here. On one occasion, a scholar from Baghdad, the great Talmid Chacham, visited a great rabbi in Jerusalem. His name was Rabbi Yaakov Shaul Elisha. To request his blessing, he wanted the bracha of this great rabbi. The great rabbi said to him, "Why have you come to me? And go to Hacham Yosef Haim of Baghdad. There's no one like him in the world." It's actually interesting. The Ben Ish Chai himself loved the land of Israel. The Ahavat Yisrael, I believe he wanted all his books to be printed there. He supported Jewish settlement there, people moving there, giving money to the Shluchei Rabbanans over there. And actually, it's reported in the year 1869, he actually journeyed to Israel, where he visited the various different kabarim of the tzaddikim, the grave sites of many of the holy figures of Jerusalem, and of Hebron also. These are the holy cities of Israel. And he met various different Kabbalists in that specific trip in of itself. He returned to Iraq despite, I think he was offered various different rabbinical positions in Israel, and he brought back with him to Iraq a large stone to be placed at the entrance to the synagogue where he lectured. There was many great synagogues in Baghdad, but the famous great synagogue, I believe on the 8th of Elul, Chet Elul, before he passed away, this would be 5 days beforehand, he went on a pilgrimage to the grave of Ezekiel, the prophet, Hanavi, and unfortunately became sick shortly afterwards, and he passed away on Yud Gimel Elul, I believe, in the year 1909. Naturally, this is only just under 3 weeks before the festival of Rosh Hashanah. He passed away and was buried, I think, on the same night. Obviously, he was mourned by tens of thousands of people, actually, was reported to have attended his funeral. Jews and non-Jews alike. It just shows how much he was respected, not just within the Jewish community, but within regards to entire society as a whole in of itself. And after he passed away, many years afterwards, many people will actually make it a practice to actually visit his kever, I think, every single Friday. And obviously, the legacy he's had is absolutely phenomenal. Let's explore a few of the books that Hacham Yosef Haim had actually written, because we spoke about many of the great books that he wrote. He authored many books, including the Ben Yehoyada, which is also known as the Benayahu, also, which is a commentary on the Gemara itself. Obviously, a great resource for Haggadah. There was various different responses with regards to Rav Pe'alim and the Torah Lishma also. The Sefer Ben Ish Chai we spoke about, also printed in Jerusalem. And the Makaptsei also, which was an esoteric exhibition of Jewish law, providing various details, explanations within regards to rendering different halachic decisions in of itself. That's just a highlight of some of the books he actually wrote in, but the genius of the Ben Ish Chai, Hacham Yosef Haim. Please don't forget to light candles in his memory. And friends, we've covered about 375 great rabbis of yesteryear. Please don't forget to subscribe, to like the videos, and enjoy.